Um, Let me hit record also because I've been forgetting to do that. Because in the middle of it, I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot to record.
Totally relatable.
Right. So let's get started. Good evening. It's good evening, my time here, our time here.
Yes.
This is the final part of this series with sexual trauma and restorative services, global mission and training. And we've just been having a great time each week. Kicking off these series, we literally had people patching in from as far as Australia. We've had people in Nigeria. And so people have registered. Hopefully they'll pop on and I can admit them in the waiting room. And then also we're streaming for the first time tonight to YouTube Live. And so we're really happy about that. I am Tarinna Olley. For those who forgot or don't remember, I am the founder of this program, Stars GMT. And just a little back history, this program was birthed out of a service project that I had to do an application for. I was applying for a presidential leaders program, and they asked literally for your life history in this program. And we had to come up with an extensive service project. It was probably about literally 6 to 7 pages by the time I finished. I didn't get into the program because it's super duper competitive, but I made it to the last round. So whoop whoop. I was happy about that. And once I didn't get in, I said, I did all of this work for this project. I said, I want to do it. And so I had gone to Harvard for a leadership program before, and I had some international contacts, and I pitched it to a couple of people because this topic is near and dear to my heart, about sexual trauma. And so thus here we are. I'm in my third year of doing this particular training. We were supposed to be in Atlanta this year because unfortunately Atlanta is a hub for lots of sex trafficking. But because of COVID, you got to be safe. And so we're virtual. And the internet, I've learned about you, and we'll introduce Alyssa. Am I saying, is it Alyssa or Alyssa? Okay. And so I searched Instagram just for positive things all the time. I like connecting with other people. And I saw your organization there, and I was like, let me, scroll. You see one post and you're like, okay, well, let me just keep scrolling. And before I knew it, I was down your feet. I said, oh, this is great. And it just resonated with me. That doesn't happen with everybody. I'm not a person that immediately gravitates to people. That's just, I work on it, but it's not automatic for me. And I said, I was just compelled. I said, I'm a DM, and just kind of see. I really wasn't anticipating a response because, DMs get full. And then I got a response. I was like, oh, it's not a robot. It's not a computer. It's a real human being here.
It's this girl.
Yeah. And so, and she's with Seed and Soul LLC, and she'll introduce herself. And I'm speeding up the story. And what really made me honestly feel comfortable, I'm big on organic, like, natural kind of vibes and connections. You sent a voice message. And I said, hold up. I said, this is something that resonates with me. I said, because, typing is one thing. I said, but hearing someone's voice, that brings another layer to it. And I was like, oh, a real live person here. And then I guess they say the rest is history. I reached out to you and I just shared, and I felt like it was just, that connection there on the internet. And I reached out to you and you were gracious enough to come. But your story definitely resonated with me, and especially about the trauma piece and some of the things that you had experienced. And so for my audience who may not be familiar with you or the work that you do, can you just briefly explain your company? And also, how did you come up with that name? I think the name is pretty cool, but how did you come up with the name?
Yeah. So thank you for reaching out. Thanks for DMing me and inviting me on here. I'm so excited to be here and jazzed to get to share this space. This is a topic that's dear to my heart, which we'll share about a bit tonight. which is why when you DM'd, I was just like, yeah, this is easy. Yes. You know, like we are like, oh, I'm only saying yes to things that are like a big yes right now. And this is an easy one. But so my work is in emotional development, specifically in tiny humans is where it started. And really it was born from what I wish I would have had. You know, like what, and like I said, we'll chat about my trauma and my experiences. But when I look back to 14-year-old Alyssa and this girl who was trying so hard to stay alive at that point, you know, who was grasping on to coping mechanisms, treading water, keeping her head afloat. Like, man, what do I wish she would have had?
Yeah.
And my master's is in early childhood. And so I was working with tiny humans and was realizing that we were building so many of these skills that, like, I was at that time in my 20s was like, wait, I didn't get these.
Right. Neither did I.
Right. And, but realizing how much we can build, how young we can build it, and what it looks like down the road when we have those tools to fall back on. And I ended up working with a colleague to create the collaborative emotion processing method. We call it the CEP method, CEP. And it's about how to build this emotional intelligence. What does it look like? What does it look like for us as adults? What does it look like for those tiny humans? And how do we do this in everyday life? You know, like so many folks, so many of us don't have access to mental health support, or we don't have a whole bunch of money or time to dedicate to just like healing. And so what does this look like in everyday life? And when we're triggered and we're walking through normal day to day. And so we created the CEP method as a framework for that. And now I support caregivers in building these tools with the tiny humans. And so much of building them with the tiny humans is doing this work ourselves.
Yeah. I love it when you're the first person I ever heard to say tiny humans. And you're right. They're human. Sometimes I think we miss that children, they are just they're humans, just tiny humans, as you say. I think that is just perfect. And I think we miss that level of understanding, and that we all were tiny humans at some point. And so that's just great. Why you created the community and doing the type of work you done. And something I heard you just say briefly is about that sometimes you don't have the support that you need, and wishing something that you had when you were a child. So if you could just briefly share, like, what do you mean by that? Just share your story of why do you even say that you needed that at that time?
Totally. So essentially, when we experience hard things, and it would be so dreamy if we could live in a world where we would feel happy and content and excited and all those feel good feelings all the time. But that's not how life works. And that's not how emotions work. It's not how our bodies work and our brains. And so we're always going to feel, whether we experience capital T trauma or not, we're going to experience hard emotions. We're going to experience disappointment and embarrassment and fear and all those big hard ones. And for me, I grew up in a house where it was like, you can feel your feelings in your bedroom behind that closed door. Sure, throw a tantrum in there. You can come out when you're calm and you're done and you're ready. And you just have to figure out how to get there. And then as I was going through life and more things happened, or even just like it didn't happen at home where I could go be in my room and hide away from those feelings or from other people. I'm embarrassed at school or something comes up. I didn't have a toolbox to turn to say, ooh, what am I feeling in my body? Where am I feeling it? How do I regulate and respond with intention? I didn't have any of those tools. And then as 14-year-old girl, I was raped. And from there, it was capital T trauma. And I found myself living in this state of survival, really so much fear and no toolbox for those hard emotions. And doing whatever I could to numb them, which at the time meant alcohol, drugs, any distractions I could tap into, or for me also like obsessively trying to do the right thing, I was president of student council. I was like the treasurer of our class, like all the things to try and be enough, to try and show folks that like I was enough, to try and show myself that I was enough. And then eventually when I was doing this work, I ended up building out this framework. And now I have a toolbox for when that fear comes up, when those triggers come up, when that pain comes up, to be able to identify it, to notice where I'm feeling it in my body. And most importantly, to notice that feeling that I'm feeling, that is that tiny human inside of me. That's my inner child, right? Like that's 14-year-old Alyssa that's feeling something hard right now and is scared. It's not 31-year-old Alyssa. 31-year-old Alyssa is here and safe and secure and has a different toolbox to pull from. And so as we're doing this work, like that's something I really want to talk a lot about tonight, is how to build that awareness of who's here right now. Who is it that's feeling scared right now? Who is it that's showing up right now? Because for so many of us, especially with capital T trauma, sexual assault, whatever trauma you've experienced, any abandonment, anything like that, you're going to have these inner children that live inside of you that are there, that have been like locked away and protected, that we work so hard to keep safe from feeling anything hard again. And what that looks like is that inner child gets triggered and the ego will come in and protect it. And it's like, oh no, we've been down this road. You're not going to hurt her again. And how to start to notice, like, who is this? Is this a 3-year-old? Is this an 8-year-old? Is this a 16-year-old? Or is this your adult self that's here right now? Oh, I can't hear you.
Myself, I'm sorry.
There we go.
This is so good. Oh, so many nuggets. And so people who watch this, who even catch the replay, like you were saying, that tiny human in you, that inner child in you, that person who is your younger self, but then you say something key about the ego kicks in and you're like, oh no, I'm not going down that road again. Can you just speak a little bit more? Because sometimes adults tend to think that a lot of adults are driven also by that ego, that pride and all those kind of things, because, you know, the big V words, a bit feeling vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. And all those things. And so how could you just, which you already did in ABC terms, help that person who, when their ego kicks in at that moment, right? Mm-hmm. How can they, you know, because sometimes that may push people away or just whatever, like how can you get a person from that initial trigger to the next step, however big that is or however small that is?
Yeah. The ego's so awesome and important, by the way. Like, I love the ego. I think it gets a bad rap, but the ego is your protector. It is, as Brene Brown refers to it, your armor. It keeps you safe, right? Like, the ego is what helped me survive from age 14 until I had more tools in my toolbox to pull from. And so I want to express also gratitude for the ego. Because it will pop up, and that's what it's designed to do, is to pop up and say, ooh, I don't want you to get hurt. So maybe when you start to feel sad, you might find yourself just the other day, actually, I was feeling sad. I was having hard emotion. And my husband asked if I wanted a hug. And I refused it because I didn't want to cry. I was like, well, if you hug me, I'll cry. And he was like, yeah, okay. Like, you can cry. But my ego was like, no, don't cry. Like, if you just fight through this, you'll get to the other side, right? Our ego is designed to protect us. It doesn't want us to feel those hard things again. And so first and foremost, it's just acknowledging that, like, it serves a really cool purpose. And there are times that we don't want to change what it's doing because it keeps us safe, right? There were times in my teenage years where because I didn't have other tools to pull from, I needed that to stay safe. I needed to not be in a position where I could be vulnerable, because it could have been like an end of the road for me, right? And so a huge part of this is like gratitude for this ego. And then as you start to notice, like, oh, I'm getting defensive. Or for some of us, maybe you dissociate, you pull back, you go quiet. Being able to just start to notice, like, that's what I'm doing here. I'm feeling triggered and my ego is trying to keep me safe. And giving yourself a moment, the fastest way to move from, so when you feel that, your brain fires in your amygdala, which is your feelings brain. And it's super primitive. This is the same brain that's like fight, flight, freeze, is your amygdala. And we can't do any rationalization. There's no like seeing somebody else's point of view. There's no bigger picture until you have access to more of your brain. And so that cortisol or adrenaline fires, you're in your amygdala, and your goal is to regulate your nervous system that's currently pumping some adrenaline or cortisol, regulate that so that you can regain access to what we call your prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking brain. And the fastest, easiest, most accessible way for this is deep breaths. It sounds so simple and like, it drives me nuts how simple it is. Because it's also in the moment the last thing that I want to do. I'm like, no, I'm not going to pause and breathe. I go into fight mode. I'm like, I will fire back. Let me tell you all of the ways you are wrong. And that is what comes up for me, right? I'm like, oh, it's like full fire over here. And so for me, it's the last thing I want to do is like pause and breathe. And what was really helpful for me in this journey was noticing first, like what it feels like and where I'm feeling it. So now that's the trigger to me, like, ooh, Alyssa, your chest is tight and you just got this full warm feeling throughout your body. You need a minute, sister. And this for me could sometimes I can't be in the presence of the human that I'm feeling angry at. I'll be like, you know what? I just need to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. And in the bathroom, we'll close my eyes and breathe. No phone, no scrolling, no distraction, just breathing and literally focusing into like, right now I'm pregnant, so it's easier to do where I'm like breathing into the baby. But breathing deep breaths into that belly and exhaling. And it is annoying how like simple that is and how hard it is to access in the moment.
And that's something for me that I had to learn as well. Because like you said, that fight or flight thing just kicks in, especially when you felt unsafe and you've had unsafe situations. It's that immediate response like, oh, no, I'm not, going to do that. And the example that you shared, with you saying to your husband, I don't want to cry. So my husband and I said, this was me the other day. So we have a new lamp. And so it already was triggering from, I felt like the lamp was not put up fast enough. He's let it sit in the box for eternity. So even when he put it up, I had to catch myself not to be sarcastic and say, oh, you want to put it up today? And then he asked me to help him. And so I said, okay, let me not. He's putting it up now, and that's fine. And then the thing comes of where we should put it. Okay. And so at that instance, I got a little annoyed. Because with me and some of my trauma and it particularly comes up sometimes with men. And I know my husband is not trying to hurt me, not trying to control me. And there's that thing that came up. You're trying to tell me what to do. You act like I don't have an opinion of my own, that whole, and I had to learn. Right now, I know and I recognize, like we were talking about those tools that you develop along the way. The old Tarinna some time ago, it would have been a full-fledged kick fight over a lamp, like really a lamp. And so in that instance, and my husband knew, he came and he says, come here. And I was like, I wouldn't say, no, I'm not coming to you. And he came and he gave me the biggest bear hug. And I felt the tears about to come. He's like, you about to cry? And here we go, just like crying down tears. And that is important to have those safe spaces to understand that you don't always have to fight or always have your guard up.
Always have to be in control.
Yeah, that. Yes. Yes. And the part about breathing that you said, can you share with a little bit, because some people in my audience, this is the very first time they're ever hearing anything about tools, they're ever hearing anything about copings. A lot of my people that follow me are in Nigeria and Lagos and things. And here in the US, we're fortunate enough to have so many services, mental health, but in other places, it's not as such. In particular, in certain parts of Nigeria, the only places that they have is psychiatric institutes. And so there, everybody gets, but everybody doesn't need that. And so when we start talking about when trauma, sexual trauma is unaddressed, in your experience in working with people and addressing the inner child, how have you seen that show up in the lives of others? We kind of been touching on it, but how does it show up in the life of the adult now?
Yeah. So I'll give you some examples from me personally, right? So I shared that I was raped at 14. It occurred for me in a basement, and I was wearing like button fly pants, like it didn't have a zipper, right? And so for years afterward, I was triggered by basements, or if I couldn't wear button fly jeans, right? And it in my brain was connecting all these things to you aren't safe, right? In the same way that you were just saying, like, men can be triggering for me, your brain can connect like men not safe. And our brain's designed to do that, right? It's designed to keep us safe. It wants to take the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a kid's movie. So good. It does a good job of showing this, of like, as this little kid is growing up, you're seeing like, oh, she tripped over a cord once. And so now every time she gets close to a cord, the fear part of her body spikes and is like, oh, no, 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 you're not safe. And so for me, every time I'd come to the basement, my laundry was in the basement for years, et cetera. And there were things I found myself being like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live afraid of basements, because I wasn't raped because I was in a basement. I was raped because I was with somebody who doesn't have high emotional intelligence, and we happened to be in a basement, right? Like the basement was coincidental. And I needed to let my brain know that like, these things aren't actually connected. You're safe in a basement. You weren't hurt because you were in a basement. This could happen anywhere. And what are you really afraid of? Where are you really not safe? And that's what I had to like break down and figure out, like, what is it? Because there are times where we're not safe. And I think it is really important for us to learn, like, what do those times look like, so that we can protect ourselves? Because there are times we don't want to break down the like, oh no, you're safe and calming your body. There are times you shouldn't calm your body. There are times that you should get out. And so part of this work is getting to know, you were saying with the lamp that like you're fired up, and old you would have been like, we're going to town over this lamp. And and really what it is young you would have gone to town over the lamp. Young you would have said, no, I feel like my opinion here isn't being valued, or I don't feel seen here. I don't feel like you're paying attention to my needs here, right? It's all of those inner child voices saying like, ooh, my needs weren't met when I was younger, and now I'm triggered. And right now it's about a lamp, but really it's about my needs aren't being met. And I'm not the adult me right now. And so even though it feels like old you, it's actually young you.
Young you.
Yes. And so that's what this looks like when things go unaddressed. It looks like us actually living from a place of the past. It looks like that triggered human coming up and calling the shots. I was just chatting with one of our team members today. She's a cancer survivor. And we were chatting about, she had gotten a tack in her foot and she's going to have to take antibiotics. She was chatting about how triggering this whole process had been for her, and the doctor and the antibiotics and the tests. And she was diagnosed 4 years ago in November. So it's like all very triggering time anyway. And she was like, but I realized, like, man, the tack and the human that is scared of the antibiotics, that's not me. That's me 4 years ago. And but it took time to get to the point of her being like, oh, we're different people. That I can hold space for your fear. I can be here and you can let me know, like, I'm feeling scared because the last time I was running all these tests or on these medications, I had cancer and didn't know if I was going to live. And that was really scary. You can hold space for that inner child when you're aware of it. The coolest thing about this work is you don't need to pay for any services or tools. You don't need like a fancy toolbox physically to pull from. All you need is to start to build awareness of what's coming up right now. It's to start to notice. We all go through, you're never going to live in a world with no triggers. right? This is actually, I have feelings about like trigger warnings on things, etc. Because like no one put a trigger warning on like button fly jeans for me, right?
No,
Like
right.
everybody's triggers are different.
Different.
And we are all going to feel triggered in everyday life. And so the key here is just learning to notice, oh, I'm feeling triggered, so I can respond with intention rather than reacting from a place of fear, right? So that I can let myself know, hey, am I safe here? You're going into the basement. You're by yourself. There's nobody else down here. You're going to do laundry. You're in a different home. You're 28 at this point, right? Like whatever age I was along the way, I could remind myself, like, you're not 14 going into the basement with another human right now where you're not safe. You're going to the basement to do laundry and you're 28. Then I could remind my brain that and let it know, like, it makes sense that you're scared. One of the times that you went into a basement, you weren't safe. It makes total sense that you're scared. I can take care of me now at 31. I am safe here.
Oh, this is so good. And this is so helpful. Even for me, just knowing the information, and and I want it to be, it's just practical where, like I be saying, everybody's not going to get therapy. And as you said, you don't need a fancy toolbox or thing. These are everyday things that you can do. And the key thing you said is just to raise awareness about it and to listen to your body. One thing I realize is that your body will give you signals and talk to you and let you know what it's feeling if we listen to it. Your body is giving signals all the time and messages. And for example, me, I grew up in an African American family, traditionally with many women, and in so many regards, and sometimes where we hear, the strong Black woman, or just even in society, period, about being strong, right? That loosely, and I'll say that loosely, and also in some other cultures, whereas it's the mantra of the strength, and so if you could speak a little bit to how can someone navigate through that process when they may come from a background where it's taught to be strong, it's taught to be the caretakers and all those kinds of things, but when you start talking about being triggered and feeling safe, for someone that may be like an oxymoron, like, well, what I know is to be strong. So how can you help someone navigate through that process a little bit?
Totally. Cultural context is really huge. And again, like when you're talking about being a Black woman, especially here in America now, it's not safe to express your feelings freely, right? Like you don't have the same freedom to do that and the same safety to do that other folks, myself included, have here in the States. And so I think taking all this into consideration, like, where can I cry? Where can I react? Where can I have an emotion? Again, back to that, like, am I really safe to do this? I think is really, really, really important. I think it's ignorant for us to act like everybody gets to feel their feelings wherever they are. That's not true. Not everybody is safe to do that. So first and foremost, I think acknowledging within my cultural context, within my social programming, what is safe for me and where, right? It might be that in the household you live in or with the humans you live with, it might not be safe to get angry, to be sad, etc. But there might be spaces that you can. And for some folks, it might be that might be a space where there isn't a physical person that can be there with you. Maybe it's a connection you've made on a group online. Maybe it is a pastor that you can connect with. Maybe it's somebody from, a church or a spiritual community. Maybe it is that you are alone. And when you're alone, you can be vulnerable and be with yourself and hold space for yourself. That a huge part of this is going to be figuring out, like, where are you actually safe to do this? There are so many places that I will not be vulnerable because people can't hold space for those feelings. And
at all.
yeah. And then I end up having to like take care of them because I cried. And that is not productive or helpful. And so I think part of this is really recognizing, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do this everywhere. You're not going, but what you can do is you can you can access these tools from anywhere. So it might not be that you can do this with your, say, maybe your mom, right? I'll speak personally. I can't do this with my mom, but I know that if I'm feeling triggered by something my mom's saying or doing, what I can do now is notice I'm feeling triggered. Hey, mom, I'll finish this conversation in a minute. I just have to run to the bathroom so that I can regulate, so that I can hold space for myself, so that I have a place to feel and be, and then I'll return when I'm ready.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you said that everyone will not be able to hold space for you or have that listening ear or to be able to handle it. Like you said, if you cry and then you have to take care of somebody else because you cry, you're like, I'm okay, I'm just sharing. The world has an end kind of thing, right? And I think that's important to know. And I remember when I shared, some level of my trauma, God rest my mom's soul, the response, I didn't get what I thought they would say. And it was more of, why are you telling us now kind of thing. And it just, I was like, oh. And then at that point, it was a total shutdown for me. It was just a total shutdown. And it took so long but I had to get that understanding of what you just mentioned, that we have to find the spaces. It may not be with our aunt, our uncle, or someone in our immediate circle, but we may have to find, even if it's online or somewhere, to be able to do that. I've started this community, which I wanted to continue to build upon, because in some countries, like for example, Nigeria, where even vocalizing what we're doing, where we have this platform to do that, it's not welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not welcome at all. It's shunned upon. And that's just so unfortunate. And I'm glad, you were able to address the cultural context, because we have to talk about that, because in every place, in every country, every continent, it's not as acceptable, and as much as we say, Me Too here, even here in the States, we have to do a better job of these, taking that taboo away and only talking about it when it's like a high profile case, or, then everything hits the news. And then afterwards, the fizzle, that's like anything on the internet for about 2 weeks or so. It's a hot topic. And then after that, nobody's really, talking about it anymore. And I've said this, and I'm not minimizing, like COVID-19 is so bad. It's a world pandemic. But I believe at some point, COVID will dissipate and, things will change and more advances. But this here, sexual assault and gender-based violence of women crosses every scope, every continent. This is an issue, even historically, from women just being violated, crimes of war, all those kinds of things that is just an issue. So if we had, for example, we never know who is listening, but what can you think we do as a people, as a nation, to keep this conversation about gender-based violence against just women? Like, how do we keep this conversation and dialogue constantly going?
Totally. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I am a human who, like, every time there's a high profile sexual assault case, I'm like turning off my news feed. I don't want to hear about it, because everybody's going to care about sexual assault for a week, and then they're going to go back to not talking about it, doing the same thing in a boardroom and doing the same thing in practice and raising boys the same way. Exactly. And so it's just, for me, it doesn't feel productive, actually. But I think really a lot of this comes back to, and I think this is true in a lot of cultural contexts. We were just talking about this on my team, how if within your culture, femininity is not valued, if it's seen as less than, and thus femininity including being vulnerable, crying, expressing emotions outside of anger, if these things that fall on this femininity masculinity scale, if they are not valued and are seen as less than, then we're telling boys that we are saying, like, what does it look like to be a man? What does it look like to be a boy?
Oh,
It
so
looks the
good.
opposite of this,
Yeah.
right? That like, if you're embracing femininity, if you are vulnerable, if you are crying, if you are feeling sad, if you're feeling anything other than anger,
Yeah.
that's not a value. I think that's one thing that we need to culturally examine across the board in order to truly move forward here, because I think so much of this violence happens to women coming from this place of masculinity. What does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a man?
Oh, so good.
And we were really just talking about this in my team, because we are doing all of our work. We're also working to produce in Spanish and have available in Spanish. And my Spanish programs director is Mexican American. And we were chatting about like, it's not just translating this work, it's changing the work so that it's culturally relevant, right? So when we are speaking to different communities within different cultural contexts, that we're not taking this like whitewashed perspective and saying like, we're just going to translate it. But instead, like, what does it look like within this culture? And how are we being culturally relevant around it? And this topic of masculinity came up cross-culturally across the board in my team, that like, every single human was like, I grew up with this in my culture, and that femininity was not valued, and that it was seen as a weakness. And I think as long as that's seen as a weakness, we're not going to move forward, and this conversation isn't going to stay relevant, because we're still going to be raising boys and men to think that if they are vulnerable, if they are crying, if they are expressing any sort of what we would consider feminine traits, that they're weak, and which automatically devalues who we are.
Yeah. So, I could talk to you for days, Alyssa. This is
Same. This is fun. I'm here for it.
This is so good. And we're going to wrap up. As we were talking about and just bringing everything into just like home and context.
Yeah.
It's that inner child in us, that tiny human being that it always goes back to oftentimes. And even if just talking about even developmentally, like there's no tool book or no hand guide to parenting thing. We kind of figure it out as we go. We take a little from our parents here. We take nothing from it, and try to figure out. But that whole spectrum, as you talked about, the femininity and the masculinity things, all of that goes into the power and control. It's just multi-layered and multi-compacted. And you must be very aware of yourself, and learning your cultural context, where you come from, your triggers. And it's not automatic, I think, sometimes on this scale of what you're talking about, femininity and masculinity, where it's just assumed that every particular woman is wired the same way, and that we're all have these feminine. I come from, like I said, yet again, with my particular family, where, as you were talking about earlier, if you were crying, it was, you can go and handle that in your room or whatever. And for me and my family, it was, what are you crying about? Is it serious? It was a scale of, this has to be really serious enough for you to be having tears, and the infamous, just suck it up. That kind of thing. And so even doing the work for myself and my toolkit, feeling and using the word like soft, what I thought in my mind was so hard for me. And I have a son, and he has such a purity about him, and such an innocence, and such a heart of compassion. And because I bring my complex history in childhood, I'm like the bear over him. Like, I was just like, no. And he's looking at me like, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm good, Mom.
I'm good, Mom. Talking to one of his stepsisters. And to me, like you said, anything can trigger. And so it wasn't a thing about him being unsafe, but it's what I perceived. Yeah. And so his sisters were talking to him, and I felt like she was talking to him a little rough. But that comes from me and my tiny human, where I was talked to roughly and all those kinds of things. And so I said, you're not upset what she just said? And I had to catch myself. I was like, no, this is not.
Right. I'm upset with what she said. You might not be, but I am. Yeah, that's real. That's so real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this actually, it's reminding me of my friend, Dr. Lynetta Willis. She's a psychologist actually in Georgia. And I had her on the podcast, and she shared an episode on healing intergenerational trauma. So really getting to know, like, what are we bringing? She compared it, I loved this, to like a relay race where, you know, our job is we grab that baton from our parents with whatever they were carrying, right? And then we are running this next race, this next lap, and we're going to hand it off to some kiddos.
Yeah.
And we in our lap, we're not going to heal all of the things. That's a whole lot of pressure.
Yeah,
we're not going to heal all the things,
no.
but we're going to heal some of it. And then we're going to hand off that baton. And the goal is not to have more trauma than we heal, right? So like that we are healing along the way. So when we pass that baton off, we're moving forward with progress. And our podcast is Voices of Your Village. It's available on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. And I think hers is episode 125. If people are interested in listening to her, she's brilliant. I love her. And I just love, she like dives into, how do we do this? How do we heal this intergenerational trauma? That it's not just, what are you bringing from your childhood? It's, what are you bringing from your mom's childhood and her mom's childhood and her mom's childhood, right? Like all of that is coming into play.
All of it. And as we wrap up, I think you said it so eloquently of, it's from different layers and it's like you said, the baton and the relay that hopefully, because not realistic to think we're going to, like you said, heal all the things, right? That's a noble goal, but it's not realistic, right?
A lot of pressure,
but hopefully through each generation, like you said, the healing transcends from each generation, and that hopefully my experiences won't be my grandchildren's experiences or my children's experiences. And but that has to be some intentionality there. It's definitely not automatic. It's definitely not automatic, and you must do the work. And it's not easy or pretty all the time.
Constant.
And it's ongoing. I think people think that, it's just, no, it's an ongoing work. And so I thank you. We can go on and on and on, but I thank you for this time to share. I know people are taking away so many good things on tonight, because some have never even had the conversations at all, as much as we have. And after you finish, that's what we're going to go into next with our next speaker. We're talking about the benefits of therapeutic writing, because some people will feel more comfortable writing their story out, and I have a WhatsApp group with a couple of young ladies. Most of them are in Nigeria, where there's a more comfort level of them when they're actually just texting and just sharing. And I hold space for them in that platform, just to be able to share. And sometimes that was the first experience for some people ever sharing anything about trauma at all. And so we have to be very creative. And I'm grateful for the internet, that it is to use it for the good, to give people various different spaces to be able to share and get the healing that they need. And so if people wanted to connect with you or your organization, and you mentioned podcasts, you kind of breeze through that really fast. But your podcast, I listen to them. I have it on, I've subscribed. And so if you could just know the name of the podcast, and also how they can connect with you also on social or your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is Voices of Your Village, and it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, or voicesofyourvillage.com. It's app free. We put every episode on the website. One that I would recommend for sexual assault survivors is I share about my reparenting journey, and for me, I had a lot of triggers. I experienced 2 miscarriages, and I was experiencing a lot of triggers that were actually connected to sexual assault, that as I was like doing some inner child work, was realizing like, ooh, this is actually, this trigger is coming up from another space. And I really like walk through what did that look like for me to do that work on episode 128 of that podcast. And then if you want to connect with us, we're over on Instagram at seed.and.sow, SEW. You can always come to seedandsow.org. It's like our mothership where you can find all the things.
All the goodies.
All the things. Yeah. And just thank you so much for having me. It's obviously a topic so dear to my heart as a survivor, and the like work is what saved my life. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful to get to talk about it and share, and for other folks to know that it won't always feel the way that it's feeling now. Yeah. That it can get easier and better, even if those triggers don't go away, even if the work still exists. You're talking about writing. I write every single day, right? Like having an outlet or talking to someone and feeling seen or heard. Those are great outlets and awesome places to start doing the work.
So very true. Thank you again. I promise I will keep in touch. I want to keep this connection going. And if I ever can be a resource to you, I avail myself. People do not have to do anything for you. And so I don't take that lightly at all. I wish you a safe delivery because you're expecting, and the new bundle of joy. Your holidays, if you celebrate those, the new year and all those things, I wish you all the best and all good things you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I don't feel like I did something for you. I feel like I got to do something with you. So thank you.
Very true. Very true. Take care. I'll be in touch.
Take care.
All righty. That was so great. I need to see what time it is. I'm gonna take a quick pause. Oh Lord, I went past my time. I'm so sorry. I didn't have a clock in front of me. I saw Nicole, you're here?
I am here. I was looking at getting my tech life together. Hey, girl.
Hello, beautiful.
Hey, honey.
How you doing?
I'm all right, Tarinna. I'm all right. Anytime I get to hang out with you, it's always all good. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. This topic is definitely near and dear to my heart. I'm dealing with the trauma. As you know, I believe, and I know you believe it too, that the arts is a great medium to tell a story. You are a great storyteller. And sometimes everybody's not going to get the message from a training. Everybody's not going to get it from a sermon, as much as we may think, all those glorious things. Everybody's not going to get it that way. It's just not. And so I attempt, and I know how I feel when I go to certain trainings. And at some point I have checked out because it's like, I've totally checked out. And so I like to incorporate artistic forms into the trainings because it connects with people, and it gets them to a place of thinking, and it reaches the soul. And so when I had said, my mind's always willing, like, what can I do? The creative. If I'm not creating, I don't feel.
You're definitely creative. You're definitely creative.
So music, I'm not a TV watcher much, but I'll listen to music, all kinds of things. And I know it probably happened to you. I could be listening to a song and tears start coming from the song, or hallelujah, thank you, or, or then whatever else I'm listening to, I'm like, yeah. It's just all the things, what it is. And so I've done work in many different therapeutic settings, and from hospitals, treatment centers, all different kinds of places. I've had gospel choirs come into rehabilitation hospitals, and just to see the face on the patients, just being able to get out of their room to go hear music, songs. I know why churches go, and sing. I understand why when they used to do it, I don't see people doing it anymore. Like Christmas caroling.
Oh, right. Yeah.
that music brings joy to people. It makes people think. All those people who write songs, all the songs we listen to, all the hits, those words meant something to us. And so I just want people to understand that music has a power and that writing has a power, and to use it, and don't just look at it as, oh, it's just something to do, because I've heard songs and it made me think about things, you know. It start thinking, and I'm the person who hear music and then it's like, oh, I thought about something, so now I'm writing. So you're inspired everywhere. And so tonight I wanted to have like a little virtual mini kind of music therapy session. And I went a little past my time, but you're here, and so what do you have for the people? Because your voice is so
Tarinna, you know, I'm extremely honored that you would even have me here. I love you so much, and you know, just the work that you're doing. As you know, this topic is near and dear to my heart as well. You know, and I, not only as a survivor, wrote my way out, and find so much healing in that. Just find so much healing in being able to express myself another way, and now being on the other side and being able to just look back without the agony of it, without the pain of it, without the tears of it, without the, you know, the sting of it, and to be on the other side and say, it really is over. You know, it really did happen, and I really am, for all the horror that it was, I really am better for it. And so it's a real testament. Now I'm welling up in the eye.
But myself, you make me.
Okay. All right. It took 45 minutes to get this makeup on. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Right. So I'm grateful. I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful for just your heart, you know, and how you genuinely want to move people from place to place through whatever you do, whatever that thing is. And you're good at connecting people, and your husband's over here handing me tissue. Thank you, husband. You know, you genuinely want to connect and heal and see people heal. You know, and you want to be used in whatever way in your social work life, in your Christian walk, in your parenting, in your sharing, just in your smile and your fashion, and just making somebody smile. And dang, what is Tarinna wearing today? And that smile, you just never know. Some people don't smile all day. You know, they don't smile all week. They don't have, you know, people to encourage them. So I'm really grateful for your encouraging spirit, and whatever it is. So it's all love. It's been love from day one.
From day one.
Release, you know, it's all been good. So yeah. So as I thought about what we were going to do today, you know, I don't even know why this is a thing, Tarinna. You know, I get nervous singing in front of the people, but
I know you do.
Tarinna, you know it. But when I think back on my life and how deep and dark this place was for me, and how I wanted to give up, and how I wanted it to be over, and not necessarily kill myself, but definitely want stop to happen, you know, and then thinking, having suicidal thoughts, and having God to have to send people to say, nah, there's something else for you on the other side of this, if you could just hold on. And so as I thought more and more about that, and as I kept saying, well, Tarinna, what you want me to sing? This song just kept coming back to me, and I'm like, let me see what she feels about it. You know, let me see how she feels. So then I found the instrumental, which my husband played it, but I was like, look at Jesus.
Look at it worked out.
Instrumental. Come on. So hey, Michelle, how you doing? So, yeah. So anyway, we're gonna do a little bit of "It Ain't Over," and that's what we're gonna do for the people on tonight.
I think that's appropriate.
All right.
The mic is yours.
I'm gonna get myself a little water here. So is this happening all week, T? Doing the training all week?
Actually, this is the last one. We kicked it off November the 7th, and so it was November the 11th, and tonight was the last one. And so we've literally had people as far as Australia being a part of it. So once we finish tonight, I'm gonna get it edited and packaged and all that jazz. So it could be available to people to use it. Yeah, that's the plan. And you're a part of it.
Look at that. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. So I'm gonna, I've never done this on Zoom before, so I hope you guys can hear it. Can you hear the music? I know the eyes look sad against you, and it seems there's no way out. I know the issue seems unchangeable, and that there's no reason to shout, but the impossible is God's chance to work a miracle, a miracle. So just know it ain't over until God says it's over. It ain't over until God says it's done. Until God says it's over. Till your victory is won. He never said it would be easy, but you're a winner in the Jesus defeated all your enemies way before the fight began. But the impossible is God's chance to work a miracle. A miracle. So just know it ain't over until God says it's over. It ain't over until God says it's done. It ain't over until God says it's over. Keep fighting until your victory is won. When people say you can, he can, he can. When you don't know what you're gonna do, he has the master plan. He will free you from your sin, give you peace within. But you better hold your head up high. You're gonna win. 'Cause it ain't over until God says it's over. It ain't over until God says it's done. It ain't over until God says it's over. Keep fighting. It ain't over until God says it's over. It ain't over until God says it's done.
My goodness. Perfect, 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 perfect song. Perfect song. I couldn't have, you couldn't have picked a better song. I just think even for what all of this training is about, for me, if like you said, it's beyond the training, it's beyond, you know, we're all intellectual, we're all smart, you know, getting all the great speakers, all those things. But if it doesn't, like you said, connect with you, you know what I mean? If it doesn't touch you in a place, and that's what it is about, to hopefully something that you'll hear, hopefully that you're something you'll see, that even to get your mind thinking that I can move from this place.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people feel so stuck. Like you said, people don't smile.
Yeah.
I've been in places where, you know, you say good morning, and it's like you said something catastrophic. Like all I said was good morning.
Right.
You know, but people are walking around with so much large in their heart, and we don't always see it. And that's what I say. People can hide behind makeup, hairstyles. You can be the greatest entertainer. You can have all the followers on Facebook, but that does not mean you feel happy inside. None of that means that. And I think a lot of people miss that because they see the outer thing. People show you what they want you to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's something that I say is that the pillow doesn't lie. And so that when you're by yourself at night, and cognitively, just even mentally, the brain stores everything. And you know what happened, and you know what experiences that you had. And we just see it. So many people like move from relationships or to relationships, you know, trying to find things to fill a void.
Yeah.
And this one is tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes it's just in the Black community, we don't talk about this topic, and we need to stop that, you know, and because most people who are sexually violated in particular are women. Boys get violated too, and so I'm not saying that, but it's by a lot of times people that you know.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about it. Yes, people get victimized all the time, of course, by people that they don't know. But a lot of times people get victimized by people they know because that trust is built, or for whatever, you know, but the scars stay with people far past the event had already happened, you know, and it stays with them. So this song was perfect. To let the people know that it's not over. As long as you have breath in your body, it's not over. I don't care what happened. Yeah. And it just really doesn't matter. And I think we need to have more creative spaces for people to come to. That's why I try to support what you do. I'm gonna show up.
Yeah, you are definitely going to show up, and I love that. I got into the first few sentences of the song and just got all choked up just thinking about the lyrics, and I said, "Oh, Jesus, Nicole, you're supposed to be singing," but it hits you, you know. It's like, and you're right. Music has a way of kind of getting in there. So I'm so glad that you added the medium, that you talk about art therapy and music therapy and play therapy and all the other things, because people need what they need. You know, however they get it. I've been to so many movies, you know, and just gotten healing watching a movie. Somebody was written a line, and I'm like, this was not for me. I feel that thing. You know, I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, watching This Is Us, just weeping. You know, just because people are connecting with words, and I'm looking at these lyrics, and you know, I know that the odds are stacked against you. And it feels like there's no way out, and sometimes you get really stuck in there. So it's just, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, it's just like, wow, that's the absolute truth, and you feel stuck. Like, I'm gonna always feel like this. I'm always gonna be depressed about this. This is always gonna be the label of my life. It's never. I'm never gonna have victory over this. And that's a lie.
Yeah, and it's not
a lie. It's not
it's
true.
so not true. And I have, you know, people, for whatever reason, God has opened a door for me to. I've been in Nigeria twice, you know, and for whatever I believe has an assignment in ministry there in some parts, but they don't even have access to like therapy in so many regards to that, but music they have access to, you know. So being able to hopefully they can listen to the songs in this particular song, because this may not be played over there, you know. And so who's an artist that sings the song, if somebody wants to go and
Marette Brown Clark.
Marette Brown Clark, if somebody wants to just pull her up on YouTube.
Yeah.
The title of the song again was
It Ain't Over.
It Ain't Over.
It
Yes.
ain't over. Yeah.
It ain't over. And that is perfect. It ain't over. For those
It ain't over.
need the correct, it's mean not. It's not over.
No. It's not over. No, it ain't over.
It ain't over. For those who are like, what does ain't mean? So
Right.
we got to break it down for the people understand that. But I want every survivor to, you know, to understand some of the stories I hear of just, it's just horrific. You know what I mean? It's just so horrific, the things that done. And one of my speakers from last week just talking about how she was raped like 3 times. You know, I just, once of being is horrible, you know, but just that over and over and over again. And so we have a number of people who are in certain countries where the laws don't protect them, and you know, it's the police, you know, hurt you, you know. So but just even letting them know that sometimes people think it's just so dark, and sometimes it really is, but I'm just optimistic to believe that at some point things have to change.
Well, and you're going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be a part of that. So it's wonderful to see how I was, you know, with you when you were first going to Nigeria. So it's beautiful to watch you blossom. It's beautiful to watch how God is moving through you. It's beautiful to see how you're using your gifts. Yeah,
so thank you so much. I want to do something. I'll keep in touch. I want to expand upon this music piece. COVID just, you know, the things, but I actually want to do some things where we're live and be able to, you know, have all the things, the studio, the sound, and all the things, and that people like sort of kind of what you know, what a thing I do like that after your plays, the play, you talk to the audience, you know, and, that's superb, because everybody picks up something different.
That's true.
They see the same play, but everybody gets something different.
Yeah, and the things that people walk away from, like, that's what you got from that?
That's exactly.
Well, when you look at that, yeah.
So that's the beauty of, I would forever include the arts. And
yes. And I'm going to always support you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. See ya. Thank you.
See ya, honey. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. That was the incomparable Nicole Morgan, who has such an amazing voice. And I had gotten a little sidetracked with my time. And Wanza Leftwitz, I don't believe she's here now. She probably had to hop off because I totally missed her time slot to do a session. Oh, you here? Oh, Lord, you here? I'm sorry. Sorry, I got lost track in the time. This is my friend Wanza Leftwitz, who has just my friend, my good girlfriend from many years back, and she has so many skill sets. But what we're here for tonight, talking about the benefits of therapeutic writing. And just as Nicole was just saying that when she finished, and even the speaker before, Alyssa, who does emotional coaching, how she talks about she writes every single day. Nicole is a playwright. She actually writes plays and beautiful stories, songwriting, and there's so much value in writing. And I couldn't think of anybody else to speak on this topic besides you tonight. I'm being very honest. I didn't consider nobody else to talk on this topic. For one, you're skilled and you're trained to help people publish books, and you have published all of mine. Shameless plug, not a shameless plug, but if you want to publish your books, don't go nowhere else. Go to Wanza, and she'll talk about how you can connect with her and all that jazz. But this topic, of course, sexual assault, sexual trauma. And I know you're familiar with it. You're in the Healing Truth Ministry at your church. And women come with so many unhealed emotions and feelings. And I believe everybody has a story. And it may not be sexual trauma, right? But it may be some other type of trauma. But could you speak to writing, therapeutic writing in itself? Is writing therapeutic? Not even just because we say therapeutic and people want to think of always these clinical terms, but so please share with us, what are your thoughts on the benefits of writing?
Sure. I'm happy to be back. Thank you, Tarinna. Hey to everyone who's here. Nicole, loved your song. Michelle, loved you last week. I'm just excited to be here. So with writing, with therapeutic writing, writing is just simply a way to process your thoughts. It's a way to get it out on paper, to take it from your heart and from your mind and actually just kind of get it out. In business, we would call it a brain dump. Like when you have so many ideas running around and you don't know what to do first. But when you've gone through something traumatic and you don't have anyone to talk to, and it was Alyssa was phenomenal earlier this evening, and she touched on writing and just how you process things. And so when I was thinking about, well, what could I say in a short amount of time, but really kind of give you some tools, because she was saying how the toolbox, she didn't have certain tools when she was 14 and different things like that. And so on the way here, I rushed home, Trina, I was out. And so I'm like driving, but we're listening and my daughter's in the car. And so really quick, I just want to share the story. So I'm telling her, she's listening, and she actually listened to the other days as well. And so I was telling her, she was like, well, Mom, well, none of this ever happened to you. And then I said, well, actually, it did. When I was about, I think it was between like 8 and 10. I don't remember the exact age, but I remember the room. I remember who it was, that type of thing. And she was like, so you just telling your 14-year-old daughter this? You ever told anybody? And I said, actually, I told your dad once. So now I'm in my 40s, but I never had a conversation about it because, like Alyssa said, I didn't have the tools and it just wasn't spoken about, And so I told him, I said I wasn't, I told I was inappropriately touched when I was sleeping, woke up to someone on top of me. And so I never shared that. I think I told my husband, and then I told her tonight, and she was flabbergasted, like, well, Mom, why are you telling me? I said, because I need you to know. And back then when we were growing up, it just wasn't a conversation. And I said, it wasn't, I said, I walked out of the room and I never said anything because I knew what he did was wrong, but who was I going to tell? Like, I don't know. That's my cousin. We're family. And I just didn't have anything I had no framework for it. No one talked about things like that. So it was just a matter of, okay, that happened. That was wrong. But I know to stay my distance from you, even as an adult. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to stay my distance from you. And my girl's going to stay my distance from you. Now, I haven't seen them in years, but I'm just going to stay my distance from you. So going to writing, when I was asked about writing, so that was actually just a few minutes ago, we had that conversation. And I got a little teary-eyed because I was like, well, do I need some help? Don't mind me, Trina, we laugh a lot. But I was just saying, it's amazing how you can go through things and things impact you and you don't really know why. And so that led right to with the writing. And so the first thing that when people want to write their story, right, when they come to me and they're so afraid and they're not afraid of like the money, people will say, well, it's expensive to write. They're not afraid of them. So they use it, it's more of excuses. They'll say, well, I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. I don't know how to write well. But the truth is they just don't want to tell their story the way it happened because it's traumatic. Because you have to be transparent. Because now, if you never told anybody, that happened to me when I was 8. Now, if I put it in a book, are people going to think I'm lying? Who am I talking about? All those type of things. But with therapeutic writing or simply writing to heal yourself, you can write in a journal. You don't have to put it public to anyone to process your feelings. And so I came up with, what came to my mind automatically was 3 P's: prioritize, process, and press. So you have to prioritize your life to the point where you are in your life and you are worthy of your life because God gave you life. And so it's not really fair to you not to be in your life and live a well manicured life, if you want to say, right? That's not fair to you. Yes, this was traumatic when it happened, 14, 15, 20, 40, whenever it happened, but you have to begin to prioritize your life. And with writing, you can either do free writing or you can do prompted writing. You know, you have a list of questions that you ask yourself every day, or things that you read something and then you respond to it and go through your feelings. Because if you don't prioritize you, your life will be over. You know what I mean? And you still have purpose. God was the one decided that you would be here, and he gave you value. People did what they did. People have their own will, but that should not eliminate your life. You should not live a life of struggle, fear, pain because of an incident that was done to you. That's not fair to you. And so sometimes when I talk to people about writing their books, you know, they'll say, well, God told me to write this book. I said, because this book will help someone else. You have to be able to process your feelings. And so we go into process. And I said, just do a free write. Just write it out the way it happened. It doesn't matter if it's hard. It doesn't matter if it's harsh or you feel like you're going to hurt someone else's feelings. I said, just write it all out, because you can always edit it later. And so I tell a lot of my clients, I said, the truth is, if you didn't want to be in my book, you shouldn't have done what you did. Because now I'm holding a secret. I'm holding in the pain. I'm holding in the pressure to protect you, but you did not protect me. Right? So if you didn't want to be in my book, you shouldn't have done what you did. Now, I'm not saying just go blast people. No, I would never say that. But there is a way to nicely be transparent and get out what you need to get out. So you need to prioritize you and your life, because no one else is going to do it. I have a good friend that says, if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else is going to take care of you. So you have to make up in your mind, I have value. God gave me value. I'm going to reclaim my life back. So I'm going to prioritize. And one step in prioritizing my life is to journal. It's to write, freehand or prompted, right? Ask myself questions throughout the day. Then there's the process. The process is actually getting it out. Tell what happened. Did this really happen? Ask yourself, did it really happen? Yes, it happened. Is it true that it happened? Yes, it happened. Is it true to me or true to them? Because it's true to you, but some people still don't accept that, you know what I mean? Some people still don't accept what happened to you happens. So you process all of that with no judgment on yourself. It is what it is. This is what happened. And so I'm going to write it out, and I'm going to reflect on how I feel about this and what has gone through my life through the process. I was talking to someone, I won't mention her name, but we were just talking about how a person, she wasn't quote unquote like abused by this person, older lady, but this one person in her life called her a certain nickname for 10 years. And it's derogatory. And he was like, oh no, it's a term of endearment. And when she told me the name, I said, that's derogatory. And now she's having trouble with self-esteem issues and different things. I said, seeds that are planted by others, they grow inside of you. So you have to process those things out, write about it, talk about it. How do you really feel about it? No one has to read it. It's for your benefit. And then the last thing is press. You have to press through the feelings, press through the emotions, press through the tears. You are worth every change that you need to make. You press through writing in your journal. Press through, Tarinna, you just said, the pillow tells the real story. The journal going to tell the real story. If somebody find it when you pass away and die, oh well, good riddance, they know the truth. Press through it. You are worth it. You cannot give up your life because of a traumatic event. Now, I'm not lessening it. God knows I'm not. I'm not lessening it at all. But you have to press through. You can't lose your life and your purpose because of something that someone decided to take from you. You have to take it back.
I'm sitting over here hollering. I'm on mute. I could run, literally. Woo, 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 woo. That was awesome. Everything just ties together. I'm trying to keep it all because I'm a weeping willow. But some people are just so hopeless, and some people just really, really feel that what happened was just so horrible, no matter what it was.
Mhm.
You know, the fears of, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that, but everyone needs an outlet, a healthy outlet. You have to find a way, no matter what it is, even if it is someone was talking to you derogatory, like you have to find a way to discard all of that. Because what happens is that stuff gets lodged into you and it becomes toxic to you. And then eventually it's going to come out, and it'll come out and impact those people around you. And so we have to do, I believe, a better job of getting to the root, no matter what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like Alyssa was just saying, to being aware, raise the awareness, have the conversation, stop letting stuff be so taboo that we can't talk about this, we can't write about this. People writing about all kinds of things that they want to write about, all kinds of stuff. And as you said, your story is for somebody.
Right.
You don't know who it is, and that is not our job to try to figure out who it's for. And I'm glad you simplified it, because sometimes people think we make it more complicated than it needs to be. And there may be somebody, everybody may not want to write a book, but there are many people who do. And Wanza, she's going to tell you how you connect with her, because some people legitimately should have their story published.
Right.
Because written material will be here when you're long and gone. And it will be here. People are reading books from centuries and centuries ago. We still read stuff from the 1800s, 1900s, even way past then. So there's power in the written word. So we just must take that fear away and not thinking that, and it's something that you even helped me with. I felt like also that a book had to be so long and elaborate. You know, you was like, we'll do an ebook. And I was like, that's it? Like, that. But yeah, everybody don't want to read an 800-page book. So sometimes you need short, quick stories.
Right.
To get it and read the information and move on. But those P's were awesome. So can you say them one more time for the people, the P's? Because I need to write it down. Okay, prioritize. Okay.
Which is prioritize, put you in your life again. Prioritize, process, and press.
Press. Wow. Wow. This is great. This is so great. Woo. Thank you, friend. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. This same way people write sermons, same way people just, you know, I know you're going to do been different things, but there are women who are like incarcerated. There are women who, you know, didn't start out to say, I wanted to end in jail. You know, just everybody has a story. Everybody needs to be heard. Even when you encourage me when I'm doing my poetry, no matter what it is, it could be poetry. You could be a songwriter. I didn't even know certain
Your
things.
first book was a poetry book.
Exactly. Until I started writing, I was like, oh, okay. And so same you were saying, you know, prioritize and the process, stick with it. That's what I want somebody to stick. And I don't think people should think that Wanza can get you an editor, you know, so don't even worry about there's just so much stuff out here. Even the things that, well, I know now with technology, you could do audio, you know, kind of things. Because some people's like, well, you can get a tape recorder. You know, sometimes,
I was telling one of my clients that I was working with yesterday, I said, you don't have to worry about the grammar or how you're writing. Exactly. I said, the only thing, I can do everything else. I can get you a cover. I can edit. I said, the only thing I can't get from you is your content. Yes. I can't write what you know on the inside. And so however you give it to me, you could give it to me in broken English. You could give it to me on a recorder or a tape. I said, as long as you give me the content, we'll figure out how to put it in a book. Yeah.
You'll figure the rest out. Yeah.
You know, and so it's not so much, it's the content people are afraid of. It's not the money, it's the content, you know? And so even with sitting down and just writing out your goals. And so, you know, you have a lot of people like in the Bible and, you know, you go to a business conference, it's like, imagine where you want to be. People are very scared to sit and just think. Because they don't know what's going to come up.
Oh, that's so good.
They don't know what's going to come up. And so you're like, you know, you know, I mentioned God, you know, I'm a believer.
That's
So
fine because it's
God has so
faith-based. God,
much,
yeah.
God has so much more for your life, you know, and so much more value. And so even these last few months, it's like that value thing sticks with me. It doesn't matter what you have gone through, even if you're in poverty and you're in stricken places and the trauma, but he still has need of you. He still has need of you. You can touch someone else's life. And so you got to prioritize yourself again. You can't let that trauma steal your entire life. And that's what happens. You become angry, you become bitter, and it shows up in your parenting. It shows up in your marriage. It shows up on your job. It shows up in your bank account because you have let that incident, and it's traumatic. Granted, I give it that, but you have let that incident overtake your whole life while the person who did that to you is doing it's still holding you hostage. It's like you're being raped over and over again because you can't live your life the way God planned you to live it. And so you got to let that go. And if somebody's in, if it, listen, hey, I'm just at that point. It's just like if because this is the thing. I'll go spiritual again. The enemy knows who, like, if I attack her or him, they'll hold it because their heart is loyal to covering. Their heart is automatically a protecting heart. So even though this was my abuser, I'm going to protect this person because I don't want them to be embarrassed. I don't want their lives to be interrupted. But at the same time, protecting them is holding you hostage. So you have to get free. And so writing is one of the ways, even if you never publish it, you have to get it out of your spirit. You have to get it out of your head so you can lock it in a book so you can live again, you know?
Yeah,
So that's one of the ways.
I just think that you just gave so many practical things. Everybody, like you said, may not want to publish, but journaling is a great tool. You have to find a healthy outlet to get it out because if not, people are going to find ways to soothe. And it can come from drugs or alcohol. It could come from eating. It's going to come from food. You're going to find a way to do it. And so this is a constructive, healthy outlet. And just think about all the books that are out here that people are actually writing, inspirational, just all kinds of things. And that is exactly why people write the same way people write plays, or we're watching, like Nicole was talking about, we're watching something on television. All that had to be written first.
Right.
And so there is power in.
And it gives relief.
Yes, it gives relief.
It gives relief to situations. Like the first person that comes to mind, Tyler Perry. We were talking about him today. A lot of people don't like his writing, but the truth is his writing is very real. It may not be your life, but it's giving relief to a lot of people. He's a billionaire now. So it's giving it's giving relief. It's like, oh, that was my situation. I can relate to that. Sometimes you find yourself laughing at Tyler Perry. Sometimes you find yourself wanting to cuss because it's like, that's real, you know, but it gives a relief in a form of a non-threatening form, you know, so I can relate to this. And, you know, if you ever watch his plays, he go off on a little tangent here and there, but that's on purpose. That's to help people heal. That's to help people recover, you know, and so that's the same with writing is, you know, it works. It works.
Thank you so very much. I think this thing is going to cut off because I don't think I did it past the 2 hours. And so we got 2 minutes before. How can they connect with you if they want to get more information about writing?
My website is wanzaleftwich.org. It's my name. And you can find me on all social media with my name, Wanza Leftwich.
Thank you, everybody who was a part of STARS GMT. Look for this training to be repackaged so you can get your hands on it. This is life-changing information. So thank you, everybody. I'm giving you a virtual hug from me to you all. Thank you so very much. I love you all immensely. This is God's work. It's not about me. I'm just the conduit. But I'm grateful for this opportunity. And so I'm going to go cry my eyes out because this is just so, I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful. And on that note, God be praised and to God be the glory. Thank you, everybody. Stay connected with me all things Tarinna Olley, my website, social. Good night, everybody. Good night, friend. Good night.